we're talking about this thing that happens when you put yourself aside for a moment and enter into the world of somebody else.
Yeah.
And I know from experience how refreshing that is. I mean, we have stuff coming at us all the time, as humans in this world that we live. And, it was a few months ago, Kaleb, that you came and sat in my office and was like, it's your turn. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I have phone calls to do. I have things to say. I have people to listen to. I have all of this. And that moment when you sat across the table from me and you just sat and listened was just such a breath of fresh air in my world, in the insane pace of everything I do. Just to have that moment where somebody actually cares about my journey, my story, my history, it was game-changing for me.
I would say this is the major part of my ministry. I don't talk about my ministry much, in that I see myself much more as maybe a journalist or something like that. But the ministry of presence and the ministry of listening, by interviewing, 4 people every week, I spend a lot of my time just opening up space for them that wouldn't be opened up otherwise. I use the illustration of if you're walking down a sidewalk and you've just been walking for a long time and you're tired, how many of us just sit on the ground? Nobody. Almost nobody sits on the ground, right? You walk until you find a space designated for you to sit on. And that's the same with sharing our stories, is that somebody has to create that space. And a lot of us are tired of walking and we need the bench. A lot of us haven't had that space created for us. Some people ever. Some people have never had somebody do this for them. And in taking this time constantly on a weekly basis, by going around our conference and reaching into the pockets of humanity that we have here in Oregon and then beyond, we're actually showing people that you don't have to be a pastor to matter. You don't have to be have an online presence to matter. You don't have to be young to matter, right? You matter, and your story matters, and we want to hear it.
Maybe this is going a step too far, but I think that when we listen, we're actually giving people an experience of Sabbath. The world says you must do something in order to matter. You need to perform at work. You need to do all these things in order for us to pay attention to you. The art of listening is simply about who you are right now is enough. And my attention is how I prove that you are enough right now. And as you're saying, it was game-changing. It was a burden off your shoulder when someone just simply listened. When we show up to people who feel like they're not enough, who feel like they're not the right kind of person, or they haven't done the right things, when you sit and listen and you give them the respect of your presence and listening, you give them an experience of what it means to be to Sabbath. That with God, we're already enough, so they don't have to do anything extra. Just who they are right there in that moment is enough.
And that's such an important point. If God's people in the Oregon Conference were to take on the mantle, to take on the responsibility of creating that space for even one person per week, what would our territory be like?
We would have the true experience of church, right? And I think, man, my heart is heavy for this, because imagine a local church where you walk in and people care about more than what you're wearing, about more than whether you read the Sabbath school lesson or not, but you walk into a space where you truly feel like, wow, the people here, no matter where I've been this week, no matter what's happening, genuinely care for me. And I genuinely care for them. I think this is a missing piece of church in 2020. This is a desperately needed piece of church. And I think people of all ideologies, all backgrounds would flock to this attitude, and through that we show Christ. Through that, people would say, I don't know, how you came to all of these conclusions, but I sure know what you're doing. And I sure believe in what you're doing. And I want more of that.